The way he said the line was a little weird.
It's fine.
I actually liked it. Well, the Boiler Room 3 takes place about 10 years after the original events of the first two films in the trilogy. And it follows the return of Jack Sorbet and the newcomer, Aaron James, as they return to the bed and breakfast after both having traumatic experiences there to take Jonathan down once and for all.
Is there saying I could really have this place?
For this cheap?
Yep.
You know why it's so cheap?
Oh. Oh, great. That's great. I'll go get your paperwork ready and I'll be back here tomorrow.
Alright then, see ya.
We end up with this confused, naive, almost homeowner buying this empty house sold by these shady, sketchy realtors. We come to find out that that is the bed and breakfast and that Jonathan is still lurking there after all this time.
Who the hell are you?
Just a man defending his home.
He meets Jack Sorbet, who is now a prolific investigator after all these years, and then they team up to try to kill him. They split up, and then later on, after Jack has moved away, Jonathan finally catches up with him once again, and we get our showdown.
You're mine now.
This being the progression of the film, all the while going through the Heinz arc, is what we like to call it. The story of Jonathan before he was Jonathan.
What's the big deal?
Looks like a mask of some sort.
Well, I started writing Boiler Room 3 a very long time ago, before Winter's War was long before Winter's War was close to being done. But I never really focused on it too much because, of course, Winter's War was such a big project and such a critical project that I had to spend a lot of time on it. But I wrote a script and I told my friend Conrad, Burt, the idea, and he told me the truth, which was that the idea was not very good.
Now, if this script was finished and used, the entire film structure would have been completely different. This script focuses on a man named Bruce. We only know him as Bruce, and he suffers a very traumatic story with Jonathan. This character, actually, this idea later goes on to become what we know as Aaron James. But as an early Aaron, this is what it would have been like. The movie is more centralized on Bruce's story. It is also centralized on the story of 4 young teenagers who camp outside of the bed and breakfast in an attempt to catch Jonathan and, I guess, stop him once and for all. Although this part of the story is never finished, and this is where we leave off, it would have been an interesting thought seeing 4 teenagers try to stop Jonathan. All 4 teenage characters were faded out and were not used for the final script.
So I went back, scrapped it, rewrote it again, got about 20 pages in, didn't like it, scrapped that idea, finally got... The scripts were just not good. I would not want to go back and read them, but they did have interesting scenes.
It was a very good experience on set. It was a lot of, it was a casual environment because I had worked on previous projects like Boiler Room 2 and Winter's War, and I got used to this whole cast of people and kind of how we operate. We had a good rhythm, so it was very, very open, and there wasn't a lot of like icebreakers that needed to be had. It was a lot of time could be focused on actually the final product of the film, and there was a lot of mutual understanding of what we were trying to do.
My experience on set was fantastic. Whenever I could, I was cracking jokes with the director. It was just all around a fun time, and I'm looking forward to doing future projects.
My experience on set was really nice. I mean, some of the times, especially working with other actors, in whole new locations, I was kind of stressed, and that can be seen through behind-the-scenes shots of the film. I may have been goading people, I may have been egging them on to keep doing shots and to keep the silliness at a lower level, but that was just coming from a pure, let's get this done standpoint.
3! Oh, wait. It's okay.
I have a lot of deadlines, so it was kind of stressful for me being on set and filming this film, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a joy to do. Every single one of these films, it's what keeps me going. It's just the joy of being there on set and filming something and just creating this media. It's just what is so special to me about doing all this.
Well, the final day was one of the most crazy filming days I've ever had. Probably is the most.
There was some events that happened on that filming day that the people there at least will not forget.
We filmed 6 scenes that day. The filming in and of itself was actually quite easy. It wasn't necessarily difficult. There were certain scenes that were complex, like the scene where we were out in the water and we were on that canoe. I know that scene was especially hard for Conrad because the water kept getting all over him. But it felt pretty easy.
Like it was a couple days that we were filming that, and like for instance, the creative director. Are you guys gonna cover that? Or do you want me to mention it?
Something freaky happened. We were having lunch. It was around noon, and
I ate a cookie and I had an allergic reaction, and so I spent the next about 5 hours in the hospital.
It was kind of a pause in the filming. That was like a moment where we weren't sure how we were going to go about it, if we had to change something, if we had to remove an actor from the scene. But
to be honest, we weren't sure if we were going to finish this film. It was really scary at that point because all this work may have been for nothing. But later we found out he was okay. And that was the most relieving part of that day. It wasn't finishing the film, it was making sure that he was okay. And so shortly after, around 6 p.m., we all got back and we met up with him. He had a funky looking eye. He had a little bit of a swollen eye from that whole allergic reaction. But the character that he played at the very end of the shooting wore sunglasses anyways, so it didn't matter. And surprisingly, FTB was feeling energetic and he was ready to get right back into it, and we did it.
And it was a crazy day because we finished the movie on one hand, and I had an allergic reaction, and I got pizza, so...